like they took pieces of every single series, and they're like half-formed pieces of every single book, and they threw them in here, and you're just like, I'm lost. I like throw the paper up in the air, and I'm like, I don't know what we're doing anymore. Hello, my name is Olivia.
My name's Tanya.
And we are Fangirl Feels, the podcast where we talk about all the books, movies, and shows we love that give us all the feelings.
Too many
And
feelings.
too many feelings, all the feelings. Fangirl Feels, I think, is not a very Gen Z friendly. I realize like Gen Z doesn't say feels. Did you realize this?
I did. Yeah, I think it's a millennial thing.
I think it totally dates us. It totally ages us, but that's okay. It's fine.
It's who we are.
Yeah. We are millennials. It's whatever. It is what it is. Well, today we're going to talk about something near and dear to my heart. It is Shadow and Bone, season 2 that just released on Netflix on March 16th. And I am a reader of all the Grishaverse books. It was one of the books I read during what I call my book renaissance in like 2016 to 2018, and I adored this series of books. So I'm a book reader, but Tanya, I'm curious, what's your background with the series, if anything?
I just watched season 1 and that's it. I bought after that I bought like some stickers from Olivia and that's it. I had no other context. I haven't read the books. Honestly didn't Google a lot about it. So all my context is just the show.
Okay, interesting. Well, thank you for purchasing stickers from me. That's
Of course.
so nice. Very kind. Well, okay, so this will be interesting to talk about because yeah, I have all that background with this series, and you've only encountered the show with these books. So that'll be interesting to discuss because this season was interesting, to say the least.
Very interesting.
Both of our interestings are interesting for different reasons.
Different reasons, yes. I can't wait to compare because I have questions for you on what you thought as a book reader.
Oh, I'm curious to hear. Okay. So I wanted to give you some background on the series of books because it's complicated, and I think the context is important to like help you understand, because a lot of my critique comes from, again, like as a book reader. But so the Grishaverse is a series of novels written by Leigh Bardugo. She actually wrote her first novel at 37. So back to our earlier conversation about like Pedro Pascal, like getting his, his like praises later in life. I mean, 37. Well, so she wrote the original trilogy, which is just Shadow and Bone, and it has 3 books. So Shadow and Bone, Siege and Storm, and Ruin and Rising. And those are her like original books, and they follow Alina and Mal and the Darkling, which is what most of the show is based off. Then she wrote 6 of Crows, which is a duology, which is 6 of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, and those follow the 6 of Crows. Follow Kaz, Inej, Jesper, and these take place 2 years after the Shadow and Bone series. So it's actually a totally different story. It just follows in the universe. So Alina's story is already done by the time you get to 6 of Crows, which is a change that they made in the show, that they're not in the same timeline in the books. In the show, they changed that. For
That's
better
surprising.
or for worse.
I was going to ask, yeah.
They changed that. There are characters in the in the original trilogy that do show up in the 6 of Crows duology. Like, I mean, I don't know if this is a spoiler. Like Nikolai does show up in the 6 of Crows duology, Zoya. So there are some overlap, but they are not the same story. It's a completely separate entity. And then afterwards, there's the King of Scars duology, which follows Nikolai, who is the king of Ravka, which you met in this season. So there are a lot of different books. There's about 7 books total in this. Oh, and they cram them all this season. Every single one.
Without knowing that, I knew that. I could tell.
Yeah. I'm curious. Well, okay. So having known all of that context, I'm just curious, like, what were your overall thoughts? Just first impressions of the season after you watched it.
I think we actually align in a lot of ways. It's so funny because obviously I didn't read the books, knowing that there's 7 books, for some reason I thought there was a trilogy. So I was like, why are they rushing this? It felt really rushed. It felt like, so I tend to compare a lot of shows to Game of Thrones because I thought that was a well-done fantasy series, an adaptation of a fantasy book, even though I didn't read the books. When I was comparing it to shows like that, you notice in Game of Thrones, they spend a lot of time really developing the plot. Like there would be entire episodes just dedicated to a conversation. And I felt like, so I thought it was really fast. It went by really fast. It was rushed, and I was confused a lot of the times. Like, to be honest, I had to look up YouTube videos of summaries from people who read the books so that I could
Really?
understand what happened, because I was very confused. I just felt like they didn't spend a lot of time on things that were supposed to be important. Like, I had no idea why Kaz had, like, he didn't want to touch Inej. I felt like that wasn't as
Oh,
apparent to me. Maybe I wasn't paying attention, but I didn't pick up on that. On like why he's so guarded, and so I was just confused as to why he's like so dark and moody. And then the whole history with the, what are they called? The three things that Alina needs to,
the amplifiers. The amplifiers.
amplifiers. Like I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
understand the magic system in this universe, but it was hard for me to grasp that there were three. I felt like there were two in this season alone. I felt like that was quick, and I felt like
Yes.
they rushed the death. That it was so anticlimactic. The death of Kerrigan, right?
Yeah. The Darkling.
Um, the Darkling,
Ben
and
Barnes.
such he ages so well. We'll talk about this later. We'll have a Ben
Chef's
Barnes
kiss.
section.
He is a beautiful man. Truly.
But we can probably dig into this. Last thing I want to tell you is that and I wonder if you felt the same way. Shows like this on Netflix, and I wonder if it's a Netflix thing. This felt similar to Sabrina and like
Oh,
um sh-
dang.
Sandman, and like it felt like a CW show, and Geralt in The Witcher.
Oh, The
I don't know if
Witcher.
there's something that's happening at Netflix that is so different than HBO. The pacing of these shows, these fantasy universe, I just think they're not great at fantasy. It feels, I want to believe, and it's hard for them to sell these storylines.
It's that you shouldn't have to have the perspective of like a book, like a book reader to like understand those things. Like you not fully understanding like why Kaz, which like why Kaz can't handle like that physical touch, like human touch. But also as a book reader, I'm like, why are we even fully delving into that here? Like this is not where we're supposed to be yet. Like we're not here yet. That was one of my biggest things. It's like, why are we cramming yeah, to your point, like why are we cramming so much? Like Kaz's storyline is Six of Crows. Like why are we doing that here? I don't know. I just didn't fully understand it. But you're right. I think Netflix does have a problem. I think the number of episodes, I don't know why they decided on 8. Unclear. Seems like a random number to me. You and I, we just looked up like their budget per episode. We said like what, 3 million? For context, like we said HBO's The Last of Us was 10 million. Not to compare like, Premiere TV, Prestige TV, is that what it's called? Prestige TV to a Netflix series. I think you just can't compare them, but at the same time, it's like their budget seems like it was tight. And but what if for whatever reason they just chose a small number of episodes. It's really strange to me too, because we were talking about this in our last episode about like having the writers involved in these adaptations, and Lee Bardugo was involved in this, like heavily involved. So I'm just very curious as to why some of these decisions were made and why she was okay with it. There had to have been some like internal politics going on, is what I suspect. Like some, yeah, Netflix shenanigans.
Like we talked about before, Netflix is also making the Avatar: The Last Airbender series, and
Yes.
those show writers left. So I wonder if she just felt like contractually obligated to stay. But also, again, with the budget, I just wonder if like that affected a lot of the decisions too. Where it's like, I guess this is the direction we're going. You know,
Yeah.
they might have not known if there's going to be a next season. You know, so it's like cram as much as you can
I
into this.
think that's exactly it. I think they're not convinced they're getting a next season for whatever reason. And they were like, we have to just stuff in everything we think people want in this season. And I think so. One of the biggest things, like I know you haven't read any of the books, but the original trilogy, the Shadow and Bone trilogy, it's not a great series. Like it's just not. The one with like Alina and Mal and the Darkling, it's like very, simple, straightforward story. And like to your point, it's a trilogy, so like every book does cover like a different amplifier. So like I forget what all the amplifiers were. There's like the Firebird, the Sea Whip. I forget what the first one was, the Stag. So every book covers a different one. So for them to stuff basically the last 2 books into this one season, I think was a surprise for most people. like having known that like, oh, the series, each book is a different amplifier. We're probably going to have 3 seasons of just Shadow and Bone. But understandably so, the series itself is just kind of weak. Alina's not a very interesting character. Mal is very like controversial in the books. They're like the
Oh, yeah.
only couple in the Grishaverse that like people don't like of any a
Really?
couple. Yeah. They're the ones that like they are canon in the series, but most people just don't care for them because they're kind of just bland. And it's just not a strong story. But then you have, which is why I think they included Six of Crows to begin with anyway, because that series is like as a masterpiece. I say it all the time. It's just really beautifully done. And it's like how that series goes is that they're being commissioned to go on a heist, which is actually hinted at the end of this season. They're commissioned to break someone out of prison. And as you're following them like go through this heist, things are being uncovered about each and every one of them. Like how they were showing you Kaz's background here, that happens in Six of Crows, where you learn about Kaz and like why he is the way he is. Same with Inej, same with all of them. They all have tragic backstories. I call it the competition for the saddest backstory. That's literally Six of Crows is the competition for the saddest backstory. So it's just strange. Like I understand why they included Six of Crows in the series because they are a stronger cast of characters. But then we stuffed it all in here. We wrote them a new storyline, but then now we're learning about Kaz. Jesper and Wylan are together when it takes like 2 books for that to happen, but they're together here. It's just all over the place.
Now I'm understanding your reaction to the pacing as well. That like let the writer Lee Berdugo, like she approved all that. That's
It's just strange.
That's
It's just
bizarre. The
strange.
timeline, yeah.
Yeah. It feels like a lot of it's not earned. Kaz and Inej also, like they're like the main, clearly obviously the main couple of like the Six of Crows storyline. And as much as I love seeing them on screen, and they literally acted word for word one of their most iconic, beautiful like scenes. You know, the scene that you even liked, where it's like, "I will have you without your armor, Kazbrecker. I won't have you at all." And it's like such a beautiful scene, and it happens around the end of Six of Crows, like the first book. And I was like so excited to see it, but at the same time, there was a part of me that felt like, how are we here already? Why are we here already? Like it just didn't feel earned. Like it didn't feel like we were supposed to be there yet because their story hasn't even technically started. Which is why I feel like maybe part of my I actually liked the season. I feel like I have to clarify this. I didn't hate it by any means. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. But it's like I think what you'd said about like you not fully understanding why Kaz like doesn't like touch. I think that was something that was not clear, and I think a lot of people agree, but that's like central to his character. It's essentially what happened is like he got buried alive with his brother. He got buried, like thrown into, there was a plague that got out, like an outbreak in Ketterdam. His brother dies and he's sick, but he's not dead, but he gets like thrown with the rest of the dead bodies into the ocean. Um, and he escapes by using his like brother's corpse to get back to shore. So like the feeling of like touching his brother's bloated corpse is like why he can't handle skin, which is why he wears gloves. And they like were kind of showing you that they were like showing you like him touching like dead flesh, but it was not clear. But it's like so traumatizing, very dark, and they like just didn't, they glossed over it, and also too early because you're like, why are we learning about this now? Why is this happening?
Wow. I almost wish they introduced it the next season if it's more central to Six of Crows. Yeah. Because I
It
didn't pick
is.
up on that at all. And I kind of glazed over it. I was like, oh, weird. And they barely
Yeah.
explained it.
Yeah, they barely explain, and it's like, why, andNej is like, well, how will you have me? Gloves on. Like, it's become like a protective measure, and it's so sad because he has clearly PTSD from this, but it's just like one of the many things blocking him from having like real human connection to someone he loves. It is central to him, and we like learned about it, but then like didn't learn about it. It's just really strange. Just strange way of showing that.
I agree. Can I tell you something? I read that scene wrong because when she was saying that, when she was saying, "How will you have me?" I thought they were about to hook up. I thought she was like, right now, how will you have me right now? Like, are you gonna
Oh,
touch me? And I'm like, yeah, this is about to happen on
oh
the
no.
show for
So you read it
teenagers.
as like sexy times, like you read
Yes,
it. Oh,
because
okay.
I didn't have that context of like he's wearing gloves. I didn't know why he was or that he doesn't take them off. So I was like, they're about to hook up right now. He's about to take them off and touch her on her skin, you know? I was like, and then when
Oh,
the scene flipped, I was like, something's happening. I gotta Google this. Then when I Googled it, it made more sense.
I see. That's so interesting. That's so sad. That's not how it should be. I'll admit, I can totally see how you would misinterpret it that way. Because, like, how will you have me? It's like, without all that context, that phrase just means, like, yeah, what are you going to do? Like, what
Yeah, what are you gonna do with me? Yeah.
are you going to do? Yeah, that's what it means. Oh, that's so sad because it means so much more than that. It's like literally, he can't let himself open up fully to her. Like, I'll have you without your armor. Like, he's literally wearing these things to protect himself. Like, the gloves are a representation of him, how he's like blocked off feeling. And
Yeah.
it's a really beautiful scene.
I know. The actors did a good job too in portraying that love. They do have chemistry, and I think it's great.
They do. They really do. So it sucks to me that I feel like it's unearned sometimes where I'm like, I want this, but not yet. Like, not yet.
Yeah.
I want to see more of it later. I don't know.
We need the slow burn. Come on.
Yeah, and it does feel like because Netflix doesn't think they'll get another season or I don't know what, that they're throwing it in there. And it does make me feel like, what do we have left for Six of Crows? Like, what material do we have left? I don't know. When we've already covered, I mean, we haven't covered all of it, but it's just we've covered a lot. So I don't know. All of my like disappointments come from the fact that I'm like, I am just so lost as to like what we're doing next. I'm so lost. Like, where do we go from here? And like, and Nej is leaving at the end of this. They're hinting like the storyline of Six of Crows at the end of season 2, but then Nej is leaving, and you're like, girl, come back. Like,
Where are
where
you
are you
going?
going? Like, come back. You're
Now
not.
all your posts are making sense. I now get it. You
Did you see
posted
it?
like and Nash like leaving. Where are you going?
Where are you going? That was my first thing. I'm like, what is she doing? Because she actually does. It's tough because actually what she's doing at the end of season 2, leaving, is something that happens to her at the end of Rule of Wolves, the end of the last book in the entire Grishaverse trilogy, like universe. So it's like, why is she?
What is
Where's she
going
going?
on?
Like,
Girl, you have
where-
unfinished business. What are you doing?
you have unfinished. Well, you're not here yet. You'll get here eventually, but you're not here yet. Like,
Oh, I get you posted Charlie from It's Always Sunny with the like staring at like the board with all the lines.
yes, because it literally is. It's like they took pieces of every single series, and they're like half-formed pieces of every single book, and they threw them in here, and you're just like, I'm lost. I like throw the paper up in the air, and I'm like, I don't know what we're doing anymore.
So bizarre. I'm trying to think like if you compared that to like Harry Potter, if they just like jumped straight to like in the second movie, just jumped straight to like the fourth, the goblet of fire, you know? Like
Yeah.
that's what seems like is happening. They're just jumping around.
Yes. Yes. And it just feels like unfair to these characters. And like, so I read that they are working on a Six of Crows spinoff. So I think clearly they understood that no one really cares about the Alina storyline. It's weak. No one really cares about it, frankly. 90% of people are watching it because of the crows. So I think that they were just trying to end that and then be like, let's move on. Let's make Six of Crows a spinoff. And then we're going to have Shadow and Bone be about like Nikolai and Alina, I guess, because they're more interesting. Nikolai's more interesting. But it's just like so, yeah, so bizarre, very strangely done. Then just do a Six of Crows show anyway, because that's what we wanted to begin with. Like, no one really wanted a Shadow and Bone show anyway, but I don't know.
Interesting. Maybe they did it to like set up the universe and we're just banking on it being successful and they're like, Six of Crows, will be next.
Probably, probably. I say all of this, and again, I didn't actually dislike the season. I had fun. It was
Mhm.
enjoyable. I still think shows shouldn't come out all at once. The binge model destroys everything good about this world.
I was going to say, from my perspective, not reading the books, I think they relied on a lot of people having background knowledge. That's why they moved on from topics so quickly. I almost gave up halfway through, but I
Really?
persevered for this podcast
Oh no.
dedication. It was just very confused. I was confused as to what was happening, and I was like, I can't go back and rewatch an hour's worth of a show to know what's happening, and I don't like being spoiled, and so I didn't want to like Google anything before I finished the series. So, and I like it more now that I watch those videos I told you about, the summary episodes. I'm like, oh, this
Yeah.
all makes sense, and it's such like a rich, nuanced history,
Yeah.
of this storyline and this universe. And I just wish I knew that going into it. I do think it's for the readers, but I get it. I did like it. It was entertaining, but not
Yeah.
my favorite fantasy series.
Yeah, it's fair. It shouldn't have been. It shouldn't be for the readers. Like that's not good writing. If it's like this is just for people who know. Like it obviously it's a labor of love and like should be honoring the readers, but it shouldn't just be for the readers. Like the writing should stand on its own. And if it didn't, then that's a problem.
Yeah.
Which is sad because I want the show to be successful. And I'm like, we'll watch the next season and I'm hoping for the best. Okay, so even though we had a lot to talk about, like to say just as a season as a whole, I want to make sure we talk about the things we did like. Because again, I didn't hate it. I thought it was entertaining television overall. So who I think the characters and the actors are the saving grace of the series. So I want to ask you, Tanya, who are your favorite characters or the favorite actors that you watched this season?
I wonder if we align because I love the actors, and I'm sure you've seen the interviews of them all hanging out. I want to hang out with them. They seem
They
fun.
seem so fun. They seem
Right.
so fun. The actor that plays Matthias has been showing up on my TikTok lately, and like he's really close with the actress that plays Nina, like Danielle Galligan, and they have like the most amazing friendship. I'm obsessed with all of them. Like,
That's so cute.
yeah, they're
And I
really
know
cute.
nothing about him. And in the show, I'm like, he's there for 2 seconds.
Oh my gosh, we didn't talk about that. I wrote that down in my notes. It was like Matthias got 3 seconds of screen time, and for what?
Oh, I didn't even read that. Wow.
Yeah,
Same wavelength.
same way. Literally, the man was barely there. Like, why are you here, sir? I don't understand. And he's an
Yeah.
important character,
He
but
seems like it based off what you've told me and what I've read. It's like him and Nina are apparently very important. And I'm like, where? Where
yeah,
was he?
you wouldn't know that. And that's like another thing, not to go back to like the things we didn't like, but their relationship also feels kind of unearned. Like she's like, "This is the love of my life," and you're like, "What? You guys have talked for 4 seconds."
It didn't convey to me as a watcher. Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
believable. And same with Mal getting kidnapped. Mal got kidnapped, didn't really talk about it. Was he traumatized? Who knows? We're gonna move on.
we're gonna move on. I forgot that happened even, and then I thought about it. I was like, "Wait, wasn't he like gone for a while?" So yeah, he gets kidnapped, and comes back and there's no problem. Also, the whole ending of the like he spends this entire time being like, I will never leave you, Alina. I'll never leave you. I love you. Like you're my destiny, whatever, all the like mushy gushy nonsense. And then the series ends. Like she kills the Darkling, which happens way too early. And then he's like, I need to know if this is real or not, so I'm leaving. Didn't you just say you would die for her 2 minutes before? I'm so
Yes.
confused. Very wishy-washy. And then he becomes Sturmhond, which, if you've read the books, is like the most nonsense thing to ever happen. You're like, why that? Because that's Nikolai. Nikolai is Sturmhond. That's his like alter ego. And that becomes important later too. So you're just like, why? What is going on? Where are you going?
Like you just survived dying, and
Yeah.
now you're like, I'm gonna leave. I'm good.
After devoting your entire life to this girl too. And like she like sheds one tear and is like good to go.
I was gonna say I did not think Wylan would stick around. Apparently, he's a major character. He's in the Six of Crows, and then Nikolai, I did not like. And I know he's like a beloved character.
Oh,
And in the show, they didn't convey that only because they initially showed him as like an asshole, like not a good guy. And I guess that's purposeful. But like because of that, I thought like he's not gonna stick around. He's not. There's no way he's important. I thought he was just like a
yeah.
side character. But I do love the actor who plays him. He seems very funny in the
Yeah.
interviews.
Patrick Gibson. Oh, that's so interesting you didn't like Nikolai because Nikolai is like the love of my life. He's a very important character. And but I tend to like the characters that are like the assholes that are secretly, have hearts of gold. I tend to like those characters. He's essentially If you remember in the Lunar Chronicles, like Carswell Thorne. Do you remember
Yes.
Thorne? He's
Yeah.
essentially the same character. I see no difference between the two of them. They're basically the same.
Speaking
Um,
of, we'll have to do an episode about that series. It's too good to not
it's
talk
so
about.
good. So good. The Lunar Chronicles. Yeah. But they're the same character. Like I see no difference between them.
He did
But
redeem
that's
himself, I will say. I did like him towards the end, but in the beginning, most of the series, I was like, not a fan.
really that's so interesting. I was hesitant about the actor, I'll admit, because I was protective about Nikolai. Like I just love him as a character. So when I saw the actor, I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know about this. But then yeah, and when I first saw him, I wasn't in love, but then yeah, by the end, I was like, he's perfect. No notes. Amazing. So I wonder if it's a similar thing. Different reasons, but similar trajectory. Okay, we can go back to our favorite characters. Yeah, so you said who did you say was your favorite
Oh,
character
I don't
or
think I
favorite
named
actor?
anyone yet, but I think we were just
Okay.
talking about like the interviews and like I mean from the get-go, I'm very appreciative of how diverse the characters are. The diversity on this cast is great. And you know, obviously representation does matter still. We're going to keep saying it for a while cuz it still needs to be improved within Hollywood, I think. You know, not a lot of fantasy books, fantasy series that fantasy adaptations have people of color in it. You know, growing up we grew up with like Lord of the Rings and like those movies had no people of color at all.
Zero.
And
Yeah.
so I grew up thinking like I don't have a place in that universe in any fantasy world. And so seeing this now, it's so great for I'm so happy that kids get to see people from all different backgrounds in this series. Um,
Yeah.
in terms of my favorite, I do love Kaz, Freddie Carter. His character and the actor, I think he's funny and he's handsome and he reminds me of Cillian Murphy. He looks a lot like
Right.
Cillian Murphy from Peaky
Yeah.
Blinders, and so that's why I'm in love with him. I also love Mal. It's so funny. He's one of my favorites from the series, and you're like, ooh, controversial, and I'm like, that.
Yes.
That's where we are misaligned. And then, oh, obviously, Amita, who played Inej, is
Yeah.
my favorite. I mean, I'm brown as well, and that brown representation means a lot. And she's gorgeous. She's so beautiful.
Stunning. Stunning.
Stunning.
Yeah. Stunning. I agree. I think, like you said, the cast is incredible just as a whole, which is why I'm like, I want the show to be successful because there's such an incredible cast. And it was really great to see diversity. I, that was one of the things I like, not that I didn't notice that in season one, but watching it again this season, I was like, I really appreciate seeing like all of this diversity here. It's just really well done. It doesn't feel forced. It's just kind of is. And I appreciate that. Um, and I also really appreciated seeing the female friendships. I think they did a really good job. I don't know if I just also didn't notice it last season, but I'm like, there's just a lot of women interacting with each other and a lot of like emphasis on female friendships. And maybe that's also a reflection of just like how the actors relate to each other. But I was just really appreciative of it. I was like, this is so nice that it's not just like relationships and like that's it. Like there are women who are actually like forming friendships, and I appreciated seeing that because that's like rare in fantasy as well, unfortunately.
That's amazing. And like, I don't think there were many examples of misogyny. If there were, maybe they were from certain parts of the universe, but I think that's refreshing as well compared to like Game of Thrones, which is entirely misogynistic.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there was no like misogyny just for the sake of like a story point. Like no women were considered like quote unquote lesser because they were women. Like yeah, they were that's a good point. That's just not a plot point in this universe, which is nice.
This makes me want to read the books. I just want to learn more about these characters.
Well, that was actually one of the questions I had later on, but I agree with you with all the favorite characters. Kaz/Freddie Carter, it was like the breakout star, I think. Incredible. People had critiques about him in the first season that he wasn't like scary enough because Kaz is just a scary character. You love him. You're team Kaz all the way, but he is terrifying. And this season he put all of those like critiques to rest. He was like he pulled out Kaz from the books and placed him on screen. Like a Dementor, he became Kaz, like inherited his
Yeah.
essence. It was incredible. He did an amazing job.
He was one of the
Uh,
best actors in the series, I think, hands down. He
yeah,
played that character really well.
I agree. Yeah. I also really like the actress that plays Nina. I think she's just like electrifying on screen. I just think she's really fun to watch. So I wrote her down because she's just really fun. And Inej, of course, Amita Suman. I think her last name is Suman. and she's great. Beautiful. Stunning. Is the perfect Inej. Cannot imagine anyone else doing it but her.
Yeah, I wonder how she must have a stunt double, but like if she does anything remotely similar to what Inej can do, so good. So good.
Yeah,
She played it off well.
she did. Yeah, she's just incredible. Inej is one of my favorite book characters of all time. And her backstory, they keep hinting at her backstory. They changed it a little bit for the show. But it makes me cry. It's just like she's just an incredible character, incredible actress, beautiful story.
Aw. I
She's
don't know
great.
if you've seen interviews, but she's so funny. She's like the funniest one in the interview. She like doesn't get
Really?
jokes, like some jokes. It's just funny, and like the whole cast like makes fun of her in all the interviews in a funny way.
Wait, I need to watch more interviews then. I don't
I
know if
gotta
I've
send it
seen
to
that.
you. That's
Yeah,
all I
please.
did after the first season. Obviously, it happened during lockdown, and like all I did was just spend time watching interviews of them hanging out. That's it.
That's awesome. I need to watch more. I see like clips, but I haven't like taken the time to watch a bunch of them. So I'll do that. Because they're a really fun cast. They seem like they're having so much fun, which is the point. That's what they should be doing.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, I want to be their friends, like all of them, every
I
single one.
know. Me too. Have you seen pictures of like after the White Lotus, the second season? They showed
No.
pictures of all of the characters just hanging out in Italy and like partying, and they all seem like they like each other, and it made me feel like this cast as well on Shadow and Bone. I'm like, they must have had just as good of a time hanging out.
Yeah,
I wanted to be all their friends.
it's true. I'm sure they are. Like I saw like a TikTok of the guy who plays Matthias. And like they threw him a party because he was having like a rough time. He wrote a caption about like he was just having a rough time, and they threw him like a surprise party. And it looks like just like a super chill house party, like one we would go to. I mean, they're just normal people, but I'm like, I just want to be their friends. Like, I want to go to this party. Like, this looks so fun.
How do we get invited?
Yeah, how do we get invited to their house party? It's so cool. Yeah, they seem very sweet. Okay. Do we have any favorite scenes? It's kind of tough again with the like binge model to differentiate episodes. So we can't really talk about episodes. But are there any favorite scenes that you had?
I actually do have a favorite episode, but maybe it's more so the scene.
Oh,
I've got to Google it really quick. So it was episode 5 where they meet the other saint. I'm forgetting the name. Do you remember that saint's
I don't remember
name?
her name. Yeah, I don't know. She's
Like
not
at
that
first,
important.
right? But she should be based off that episode. They spent so much time like following her. So as like
It's
a
true.
non-book reader, I was like, this is great. It reminded me of like, so there's like a popular genre in the US in cinema of like this of samurai movies. And so it reminded me of like meeting the final boss, the samurai scene, where you're meeting like the final boss would be the saint, and they're all fighting her. And little do they know she's actually like on their side. She's a good person. But I just thought that was good. Everyone got to show their skill sets, and then you learned the backstory of her. And I just thought that was one of the better like storylines in the series, even though it was short. And I just like how that was done.
There.
Yeah, and you got to see
Yeah.
the Six of Crows, so that was cool. Anytime the crows are on the are in the show, I appreciate.
They're honestly the only reason why anyone's watching them, if we're honest. Like that's it. Yeah, I liked that one. She's not that important. I don't even remember if she's in the books. It's funny, like in my mind, I was like, I don't know what's going on here. This is not in the books. I'm confused. And not that like is bad. Like, it's fine that it's not in the books, considering that the crows are not in the storyline anyway. I'm like, it's fine that this is a new story, but I was just confused partially. But she had a really good quote that was about how this is like, oh, Kaz was saying like, I found your weakness. And she's like, no, he's not my weakness. He's my world. And two worlds make a universe. I believe that was the quote. And it was like the sweetest line ever. I'm like, dang, the girl dropped a bomb there.
Right in the feels. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. Great line. I think my favorite episode was episode 4, which I believe is the episode where he confronts Pekka Rollins. Kaz confronts Pekka Rollins and like tells him that he buried his son. Do you remember this episode?
Yeah. That was a really well done episode.
Yeah, I liked that. That was my favorite scene. Incredibly done. I knew that he was bluffing because I believe that this does happen in Six of Crows. Something like this happens in the books, which again goes back to all the earlier things of like, why is this happening here? I'm confused. because I feel like we're taking all the plot points for the spinoff and putting them here, but still well done. It was very well done.
Nice. So you're saying that this happened in the book, but just later
I
on.
believe so. Yeah, I think it does. I don't actually fully remember, but I think it did, because as I'm watching it, I'm like, I've seen this before, or like I've read this story before. So I'm pretty sure it does happen in the books. And I knew that to some variety, I don't know if it's exactly like that, but it's something like this happens. And you know that he's bluffing, that he didn't actually bury the person alive. Because the entire time I'm like, I know you're bluffing. I know you're bluffing. But damn.
Whole scene would have happened in Peaky Blinders. Exactly. Like he would be
Really?
the main character, Thomas Shelby, and that would have happened in Peaky Blinders. Is like, I wonder if they watch Peaky Blinders, they're like, we can do this. We got
Maybe. Probably. I think he's inspired, or someone's inspired by someone, one or the other. It
Yeah.
also hit me too, watching this, that like Kaz is essentially just like gangster Sherlock Holmes.
Gangster Sherlock Holmes. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can see it.
like criminal Sherlock Holmes. Okay. Well, the next question I had is, do you have any favorite relationships that we've seen on screen?
I'm like, we should say it together. Kazan and
Yes.
Edge supremacy. You wrote this too. That's what I would say as well.
Yes. I mean, they're the only one that matters, let's be honest.
Yeah, truly. The only reason I'm still gonna watch, yeah. Along with other reasons, but that would be the main one. And then yeah, it's so funny. Like you mentioned, they just sped things up that I didn't. Some of the relationships weren't believable. I mean, yeah, Jesper and Wyland, that was believable because they brought that in. But like you mentioned, that's not in these series. This doesn't happen this early on, so that's
No.
super interesting. I can't even remember anyone else who's.
I mean, besides like Alina and Mal, who are supposedly the main characters, but like,
right. I just
no
like
one cared.
Mal. I mean, I like Alina's actress. I don't like
Yes.
Alina the character.
Agreed.
I like Mal, the actor and the character. And then who else? Oh, I'm so excited for whatever love triangle is coming. When Inej walked on the boat and that guy looked at her, and I'm like,
Tolia. So Tolia and Tamar are very important characters, but that does not happen in the books. So when that was happening, I'm like, what is going on?
they made that up?
They made that up. That's not a thing. Yeah, that's not at least not that I remember. That's definitely not a thing.
The drama. Netflix.
Yeah, it's like she's not even supposed to be on that boat. I'm like, where are you going?
Girl.
And him, stop looking. Like, you turn around, you go back.
Come back. Yeah.
Come back. Everyone, we need to stop this nonsense.
How about you? What were your favorite ships?
Cass and Inej, supremacy. I think that Nina and Matthias have the best, even though they had no screen time, literally zero. I think maybe because by influence of knowing that the actors are incredibly close, I actually think they do have the best on-screen chemistry. At least they did in season 1. There's something about them. They're good together when they are together, but we didn't get enough of them this season to like say that they were my favorite. But I do like them as a ship in the show. But this season did nothing for them. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with them.
That's sad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Truly, because that didn't convey to me that would end up being like a serious relationship.
No. I think they did a better job in season 1. It's a very serious relationship, incredibly serious, like very important to the books. But yeah, they got no storyline. So the question I had for you, which you were like, you've kind of answered, it was like, would you read the books after watching this?
I would, and I'm probably going to do what you mentioned. So you said, Olivia, you had started with the Six of Crows first, and I'll probably do that only because I already bought it on Audible.
Yes.
So I'll start there only because I now understand like the universe and its magic systems. I feel like I'll get it. And then I might read Shadow and Bone at some point, but it's just a lot of books, and there's other books I want to read out there, so I might just stop at Six of Crows.
I agree with that. I think that's good. I've been telling you to read Six of Crows for a while, and I read Six of Crows first. And if you have the background of the books or the story, you'll be fine. It is such a good book. So
can you talk about why that's one of your most favorite books of all time?
It's just so well done. It's just so, I don't even know. I can't even verbalize why it's so good. The writing is beautiful. The story is really interesting. It's very different from books I typically read, where we're not thrown in, like the plot doesn't build up over time. You are thrown into the plot almost immediately. like when you first start the book, you're seeing like Kaz beat up people. That's like scene 2. Like there's no kind of like entry into these characters. And you follow along with them through this, like as they're going through this heist, this breaking someone out of prison. So in the book, the plot is that they are commissioned by someone to break a man out of prison, and the man in prison is the creator of Jerda, which is the drug that you see at the end of this season, which is why they're clearly hinting Six of Crows. Like that's what they're doing. That they break out the inventor of Jerda. But as you're going through like this heist, like you're seeing them, attempt to break into this high security prison. You just like see their relationships as they go. And it's just really well done. You like uncover, it's like peeling an onion. You like unveil different parts of every single one of them, and it keeps you like intrigued. You're like, oh, this is so interesting. It's just a very beautifully crafted story that keeps you like interested by the plot and then emotionally attached through the characters. And by the end, by the last book, like Crooked Kingdom, I have a memory of a friend who she finished that book and she just sent me a video of her like crying. That was all she did. She just it was like literally just a video of her sobbing as she read the last chapter of the book. And I'm like, same girl. Like it's moving, it's beautiful, it's just a really well done story, very well written. No notes.
I love that both us and our friends cry after reading
Yes.
books. That's great.
Yeah. I think about the last chapter of Crooked Kingdom all the time. Like I'll be sitting there and I'll just like think about it and I'm like, oh my God.
I need a moment.
Yeah. It's just a really beautiful story. It breaks a lot of YA tropes. It's not a typical YA book. It just deserves to be read. Very good book.
It's a great sell for that book. I'll definitely listen to it.
I hope so. And the audiobook is good. It has 6 point of views in the audio or in the book. Like you read every single one of their point of views, and they have 6 narrators, like 6 different voice actors. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah. I love when they do that in audiobooks. Nice.
Yeah, it's fun.
I was wondering, Olivia, since you read the books and watched the shows, were there any differences you saw in how the characters were portrayed in the show than how they're portrayed in the book?
I think all the Six of Crows characters are pretty true to form in terms of personality. I think the biggest changes are actually Alina and Mal. I think they're the biggest differences. Like I said, Mal is kind of a controversial character in the books. He's like not a nice guy to Alina. He like makes her feel bad about having powers. He's just not a good guy in the books, really, if I remember correctly. I don't remember like excessively hating him, but it was definitely not enough for me to like, he didn't stick in my head very much. And I think they made him more likable in the show. Alina the same. I think they made her a little bit more likable, but I just don't think she's a very interesting character overall. Like I'm not incredibly attached to her as a character. The Darkling's one thing. So, because I read Shadow and Bone after Six of Crows, and Six of Crows, like obviously, because it takes place like 6 months or 2 years after Shadow and Bone, you know what happens with the Darkling. So when you read it second, you're supposed to be attracted to the Darkling. He's supposed to be the like third love triangle. It ends up being like a love triangle. And like the Darkling and Alina is like a thing that's, it is kind of a thing. It doesn't end up being the final thing, but they definitely have some sort of like romantic tension. But I was reading that book and I'm like, this is Voldemort. Like, I don't understand.
That's a perfect segue to the next section, right? Hawkeye Corner.
Hawkeye Corner. Ben Barnes. Yeah, so when he was cast, I was like, this is not how I pictured the Darkling. The Darkling was Voldemort to me. Like, he's supposed to be hot? I did not know that.
Yeah, right. They got one of the hottest actors who apparently knows where the Fountain of Youth is. He looks so young. He's like in his 40s.
Yeah.
He looks so good.
So
he
good.
needs to drop his skincare routine.
Oh, do you think he has?
I bet you he does, without a doubt.
He looks amazing. Yeah, the Fountain of Youth. You're correct. He just and his like he has just like amazing hair. Like whatever his hair care routine is, incredible. Beautiful beard,
The
just perfect.
accent.
The
Yeah.
accent,
Yeah. And
perfect
he
face.
seems nice. Yeah.
He seems respectful. I saw him reading like thirst tweets, and he was like, "Thank you for." Someone was like, it was like a really aggressive thirst tweet, and he was like, "As long as you give me consent, then okay." And I'm like, "We love a consenting king."
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. From
10
his
out of 10.
like Chronicles of Narnia days. That's when I remember him.
He looks the same. Looks the
Yeah,
same.
he really does. Truly no different. He looks better even.
Yeah, that's true. Better. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Everyone's a hottie patati from like the
It's
women to
true.
the men. Every single person. That was my main takeaway. Like initial thoughts. Hot.
Yeah,
So hot.
they're all so beautiful.
Every
And they're
single
supposed to
person.
like criminals, but they're like, "You're beautiful." No notes.
Makes them hotter. You know what I mean? This group
Yeah,
of misfits. Uh I
incredible.
love who's the gunslinging dude. He's so funny.
Yeah, the actor that plays Jesper,
Mm.
he's also like a breakout. Like every time he's on screen, he's so much fun to watch.
Want more of that because he's funny. Yeah, in person and in the show. How about you? Who are your fave hottie patatis?
I mean, Ben Barnes,
Number
the
one.
number one. Freddie Carter, great.
Yes.
Yes, amazing. Yeah, they're all just super hot. Every single one. It is like a CW show in that way. You're like, beautiful. No notes. All of you next level gorgeous.
Truly. Yeah. Great job with the casting.
Yeah. And then I wrote Pedro Pascal, even though he's not here, but we're going to talk about him anyway.
Yeah.
Because hot guy.
Makes sense next to Ben Barnes in some way. I feel like there are connections. Let's talk about this Venn diagram. I mean, they're both a little bit older in their 40s.
Yeah.
Great hair, beard, mustache combo. Is Ben Barnes doesn't play a daddy in this episode, or in this series, but
I don't think he's ever played. Because he looks so much younger. I don't know if he's ever played like a father. Whereas that's Pedro Pascal's whole thing is like adopting a child.
in perpetuity there. Like, he signed some contract. He's like forever a dad.
Forever a dad in every story I take. Yeah, I don't know. And Pedro Pascal like looks again, he looks amazing, but he looks his age. Ben Barnes doesn't look his age. He looks my age. He looks our age.
Right.
Like,
he could be one of our friends. Yeah.
he could be. He would also be younger. If someone told me like, oh, he's like 25, I'd be like, oh, I believe that. Like,
yeah, he's in college.
Yeah. He's actually in high school. I'd be like, oh,
Right.
okay.
He's 17.
He's
And
17.
I believe it. Yeah.
I believe that. He's like got a little bit of a beard for 17, but I believe it. Yeah, he's like a chameleon. He can kind of be whatever age you think of him.
Mhm.
Like, that's him. It is the fountain of youth. He knows something we don't. Someone
Someone
follow him. Someone find where he's going at night. I'm like imagining him now as like Mother Gothel. Like he has like a flower where he's like, do you remember Mother Gothel and Tangled? The mom that like sings to Rapunzel to become young again. Maybe he has like that at home. He like goes and he sings to something and it makes him young again.
Without a doubt, I think that's an accurate hypothesis. I think that's what's happening.
I think we should look into it. Well, that's it for Hot Guy Corner.
We need like a fun like
we should
like song
Hot Guy Corner. And Pedro Pascal will be a consistent member of Hot Guy Corner because he should be.
Yeah, I'm curious. So is the book, the Shadow and Bone, they covered everything in the books so far?
Books are done, essentially.
Wow. Okay, so all that's left is Six of Crows.
Yeah. And King of Scars, which is like the Nikolai storyline, which is what I think they're hinting at for Shadow and Bone. To me, what I suspect they're doing, Shadow and Bone is going to turn into Six of Crows. Shadow and Bone is going to turn into the Nikolai storyline. With the addition of a new Alina storyline, because with the way that ended, she's like now bad. Did you notice like she
smiled.
Yeah. She's now evil. I don't know.
Does that happen in the books or no?
No. So in the books, to save Mal, she does like Merzos, the unforgivable magic, whatever.
She was told not to.
She was told not to
by Bagra.
Yes, and she does it. And in the book, she loses her powers in the process. That's the toll, like the cost. I think there might be more to it than that. I don't remember, but either way, it ends. She loses her powers. That's how Shadow and Bone ends. This, she doesn't lose her powers. She becomes evil, I guess. That's what they're doing next. I don't know. We will see.
She might become more of a compelling character. Hot take.
She might. She's like kind of becoming the Darkling now, because then also they kind of made it seem like her powers now were shadow and not sun.
Yeah.
Unclear.
With the cut. Yeah.
Yes. Unclear. But this is new territory. That's not any book. That's new territory. It's just all over the place. It was just all over the place. They needed to just trust that people would want a next season. And I'm not even saying, like, the whole thing is like, I'm going to say fan fiction. I mean that in the best way possible. It's a different, like, story than the books. That's fine. I can accept that. But I don't know what they're doing. I'm lost. No,
If the book readers are lost, yeah, that's like a little concerning.
Yeah, I'm completely lost. I'm not sure where we're going from here.
And somehow we've reached the same conclusion. Like,
Yes.
non-book readers, book readers unite. We're both confused.
Like, it's like the same journey, two different routes. Like, you're over here, like in the forest. I'm over here. And we all come back in the middle.
Yeah.
I would rate, but again, I didn't hate it. I don't know. It's just tough.
Yeah.
I give it like a 6 out of 10 if I had to rate it.
I'd give it the same thing too, especially because I mentioned, like, I almost gave up just because from the confusion. And perhaps also if you view it slower than we did, it might have had a different effect. It seems to be getting great reviews. It's like number one in those like rankings on Netflix, like top shows. So that's good at least.
Yeah, I hope it gets renewed. I want it to be successful. I want to see more. I want Six of Crows to get its own show because it deserves its own show. I want the best for it. I just I'm not fully bought in to the decisions that were made as a reader. Yeah. It was so much more fun to watch The Last of Us week to week, and every week we get to just kind of like savor what occurred. It made every episode more meaningful, especially when there's only so many. With this, it was like it came and went, and I don't even know what I watched, and it's gone now. And I'm tired.
Yeah. I'm exhausted.
And I'm tired. Yeah.
Yeah.
In our own gluttony, we've ruined it, you know?
I agree. Especially since they already sped it up, like, in the plot itself. Like, if they had just slowed down and released them week by week, we'd have time to digest what happened. You know, it might have not felt sped up if we were just like, okay, this week we can talk about what happens here. And I get why they did this, you know? But as a whole, it's really hard to understand their reasoning for things.
It's true. Yeah. It was just really hard to buy in to what they were doing. Hard to follow along. No time to process. Yes, you don't have to binge it in one weekend like we did, but also I'm going to if it's there. Well, thanks for listening / watching to another episode of Fangirl Feels. I hope you like this. This was an interesting conversation, that's for sure. We'll be back again next week with Fictional Boyfriend March Madness. I'm just manifesting it because we're going to do that and I want to do it. So if you have suggestions for fictional boyfriends, I know we need to both know them. So we'll make a list, but very excited for that. But yeah, tune in next week. Thanks for listening. And we'll be back. But otherwise, bye.
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 Thank you.